Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video we're going to be doing a pretty cool experiment here on the $5 Windows 98 PC. And this video is probably going to be the longest video that I've ever done on this channel. And look, these are definitely some odd times that we're living in right now, and I just want to wish everybody well during this global health pandemic. I know that everybody is taking necessary precautions, including social distancing. I'm obviously doing that myself. But for those of you who are at home looking for something to watch, hopefully this video will keep you entertained for an hour or so. What we're going to be doing is, as you can probably tell from the title, essentially the massive Windows upgrade experiment on physical hardware, in this case the Windows 98 PC. Now, this was an experiment that I originally did back in, I believe, 2016 for my 5,000 subscriber special. And back then I did this in a virtual machine, and basically what the idea is, if you've never seen my original video or another video like this, what we try to do is start out with the first version of Windows, Windows 1.0, and upgrade our way to the latest version of Windows, which in this case I'm pretty sure we're only going to get to Windows 7 because Windows 8 and I'm fairly certain Windows 10 are not going to support the processor that this old computer uses. This computer is literally 20 years old because it was manufactured in the year 2000. Actually, I believe in May 2000, so it's almost 20 years old. And I do not believe that Windows 8 and Windows 10 is going to support the processor that this computer has. At least that's what I've read. We're still going to try it and see how far we can get. But yeah, so you guys can see I've got MS-DOS installed on this computer. I kind of skipped ahead and installed MS-DOS 6.22. And we're going to get started and install Windows 1.0 and just continue that and see how far we can get. Alright, so right here, as I said before, this computer right now is currently running a Microsoft DOS version 6.22. And what I have on this one floppy diskette right here is Windows 1.0. Now, Windows 1.0 did not actually get released on a 3.5-inch floppy diskette. It got released on the 5.25-inch diskettes, which are the much bigger ones, which this computer does not have a 5.25-inch drive. So what I did is I actually extracted the contents from I think there were 5 different setup images, and copied them over to this one floppy diskette, and I confirmed that it does work because obviously the installer is going to ask for all of those diskettes, but if all the files are on this one diskette and it's able to find those files, it will just go through the installation. So yeah, I've got Windows 1.0 on this one diskette. We're going to put it in the drive right now, and we're going to get started with it. So we're going to navigate to the A drive here, and we're going to type in setup, and here we are at the Windows 1.0 setup program. We're going to install it to the C Windows directory. So the first thing that it's going to ask you for is what pointing device that you have, and essentially none of these actually work with the mouse that I have. This is a PS2 mouse, and you can see that we don't have an option here for a PS2 mouse, obviously. So we're just going to, we can choose, like, if you want to choose, okay, Microsoft mouse, we can just choose that, but it's still not going to work. Now, for the display here, we do not have a VGA option because, well, just like in the case for the PS2 port for the mouse, Windows 1.0 was released before VGA actually became a standard and actually was, beginning to be used on computers. So there's no VGA option, there's no PS2 option, but we can choose option number 6 to actually get a pretty good picture. So we're just going to go with that. That is the EGA more than 64K with enhanced color display. We're going to press enter. And now it's going to begin copying files, and you'll notice that what it will do is it will copy some files, then it will come up and ask you to insert the build disk. We're just going to press C because we've got the same disk in there with all the files, and it'll just continue copying the files over. Now, the main reason that I did this is because I'm actually running low on floppy diskettes. Yeah, that's a phrase you guys have probably not heard a whole lot, if at all, here in 2020. But yeah, I'm actually running low on blank floppy diskettes, and I don't want to have to overwrite any of the diskettes that I have that already came pre-installed with software on it. I do have a couple of blank diskettes that I can write over, but I figure that I could condense 5 diskettes down to 1. Now, I also did this consolidating of diskettes with Windows 2.0 as well. Windows 2.0 was released on 5 low-density 3.5-inch floppy diskettes, and I was able to condense that down to 3 high-density diskettes. So now it's asking us for the Microsoft Write program disk. We're going to press C to continue once more. And this is actually the last diskette. So once it copies I think there were like 3 files on that diskette image. Once it copies those, it'll say, okay, Microsoft Windows is set up to operate on your computer. We just have to type in Win to load Windows. And there we go. So you can see we get the wonderful, you know, PC speaker beeping going on. That, I mean, I've definitely seen this happen in virtual machines before. And here we are. So this is the MS-DOS Executive. Now you'll notice that there is no mouse pointer. Actually, when I installed this off camera, the mouse pointer did show up, although I think I chose a different mouse option. But it doesn't matter because the mouse doesn't obviously work. But you can see here that we can actually view the MS-DOS Executive in full color. We can use the arrow keys to kind of navigate around. Now, interestingly enough, we can't actually open up any programs. When you try to open up a program, it just says cannot run cardfile.exe. Some of them, like Calendar, will not do anything at all. I'm literally pressing enter on it and it is not opening. Now, we didn't have this issue in the virtual machine video when I did that, which is kind of unfortunate because one thing I did want to do is actually open some files and kind of make you know, new documents, like for example open up Write, make a little text document and just see if we can open that on Windows 7, which I know we can do because I did in the original video. What we're going to do now is just I'm going to press Alt S here to open up the special menu. We're going to go down to End Session and we're going to end our Windows session, and now we're going to move on to Windows 2.0. So I have disk 1 here, which I believe contains disks 1 and 2 of Windows 2.0. So we're going to put that in the drive. So it comes up with a very similar looking setup screen that Windows 1.0 had. We're just going to press enter to continue. Now it should detect that, oh no, see, look at that. It's actually, because this is the Windows 386 release of Windows, it actually wants to install to Win 386. We're just going to use Windows because that's what Windows 1.0 is installed in. We're going to hit continue setup, and it should detect that we have an existing installation, and it should just keep all of those files. That's the goal. So the first thing it's going to ask you is what computer you have. We're just going to go with the first option here, which is the compact 386 base personal computers and compatibles. We're just going to go with that. Next thing it's going to ask you is what your display adapter is. Now, since Windows 2.03 was released when VGA was actually a thing, we're going to go down here and choose VGA Video Graphics Array 640 by 480, and we're going to go with an IBM Personal System 2 mouse because the PS2 systems obviously use the PS2 connector, so we're going to go with that. We're going to make no changes to it, and it's going to begin installing files. Okay, so just like Windows 1.0, the 2.0 setup is going to ask you if you want to install a printer or plotter. We're going to press C to continue setup. It's now going to ask you what your region is. We're going to go with the US because that's what we're in. And now it's going to ask you for the fonts and desktop applications disk, which is disk number 2. So we're going to press enter because those files are already on this diskette. Okay, so maybe this is the other diskette. Maybe it's already copied the files from disk 2. So we're going to put in our disk 2, which has disks 3 and 4 on it, and press enter. And yep, that actually is the case. So it is copying files off of that diskette right now. So this is the fonts and desktop applications disk, which mainly disk 2 contained literally like a bunch of font files when I opened it up. And you can see now it's copying some more applications. That is from disk 4. So that's interesting. It actually basically figured out that disk 4 is kind of combined with disk 3, and it didn't ask us to like, oh, insert disk 4. It just kind of moved on for us. So it should ask us for the last disk, which, oh, it's actually not even going to ask us for that. So, okay, that's great. So we're going to press F to finish setup. And there you go right there. Setup updated the version of Windows already installed on your hard disk, which is exactly what we want. So pretty awesome. We're going to remove the disk from the drive right now. And now we have to type Win 386 to start Windows. So I wonder if you can type Win to start. Okay, so it basically got rid of Windows 1.0, so you have to type Win 386 to start Windows 386. Maybe not. Unsupported DOS version. So, you know, I'm thinking this is probably the reason why I ended up using MS-DOS 5.0 in the original video on this whole thing. Because I don't think MS-DOS 6.0, for whatever reason, works well with this particular Windows version that I have. I don't think this has anything to do with like the hardware that I'm running this on, because it literally just says bad or incompatible with an unsupported DOS version. Basically, our only options are I could continue on and just move on to 3.0, which I have here, and just kind of, you know, launch the Windows 2.0 applications from 3.0, because this will detect that we have an existing install of Windows and it should update and not overwrite anything. Or I could literally restart the whole video. I mean, I'm already 30 minutes into this recording. I think we're just going to go ahead and move on to 3.0. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate we weren't able to launch 2.0, but we will be able to launch the MS-DOS Executive from Windows 2.0 in Windows 3.0 and even later versions. So we're just going to start with that. I've got disk 1 here. We're going to go ahead and pop this into the drive. We're going to swap over to the A drive here. And this is again Windows 3.0, not 3.1. We're going to upgrade from 3.0 to 3.1, then 95, then 98. And I think to please all of the people who on my original video were like, why didn't you do Windows ME? We'll go from Windows 98 to 2nd edition, then to Windows ME. And kind of skip Windows 2000 because this is a consumer computer. This was intended for consumers. Windows 2000 is obviously a business release of Windows. So here we are on the Windows 3.0 setup. We're going to press continue to install. It's going to check for a previous version of Windows, which it found. And yep, here you go right here. Setup has found a previous version of Windows on your hard disk in the path you entered for the destination directory. If you want, Setup can upgrade your old Windows installation. So we're going to press enter to continue and perform the upgrade. Now it's going to ask us for disk 2, which in this case we have on a actual second disk here. So we're going to put in disk number 2. And I believe it's at this point or when it asks for disk 3, or yep, right here is where it's going to launch. Okay, so it's supposed to be loading the graphical user interface Windows 3.0 setup, but apparently we're just at a DOS prompt here with a blinking cursor. And it's not reading, or the disk activity light is on, but it's literally not doing anything, which is kind of weird. It did not do this before. Alright, well, long story short, the Windows 3.0 setup program does not actually load. Well, it did load, but when it gets to the point where it tries to load into the graphical UI, which happens after you insert disk 2, this is what happens, and it essentially stops reading data off of the floppy disk, which is definitely very annoying. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Windows 3.11 or 3.11 right here. I do have a copy of this on official Microsoft diskettes. So we're going to go ahead and restart the system, boot back into MS-DOS and our non-working Windows 2.0 installation with now some 3.0 files. Now the Windows 3.11 setup is obviously going to look very, very similar to the 3.0 setup. We're going to press enter here. We're going to go with the custom setup actually, so we can modify a couple of options. And for those of you guys wondering, I did actually modify and try a couple of different display choices for the 3.0 setup, because I thought that the reason it might not be loading the setup is because it's not able to load the proper display driver. So I tried a couple of different options in there. It was on VGA by default, which would have worked and should have worked, but I tried a couple of different options and it still did not do anything. So we're going to install to C Windows, and it's going to come up with this essentially the same screen that the 3.0 installer did. So it says we got an MS-DOS system, a VGA display, Microsoft or IBM PS2 compatible mouse, your kind of generic enhanced 101 or 102 key keyboard with the US keyboard layout, English with no network installed. So we're going to say yes, the above list matches my computer. And now it's going to begin copying files. You'll notice that the 3.1 installer here does actually have the progress bar. Okay, well, we got this error right here, setup error number 214. The setup cannot open or create the file a.gdi.exe. So for some reason, it's not able to open a file that is 100% has to be on the floppy disk, because these are genuine, official Microsoft diskettes. It says you have to quit setup and then quit the application that is using the file and then run setup again. Well, I do have another copy here of Windows 3.11, so we can try that. So let's eject this diskette. Alright, so unfortunately we got the exact same error message with this copy, so that is 2 copies of Windows 3.1 down. We now have Microsoft Windows for Workgroups 3.11. We're going to try this. Oh, now it can't copy comdlg.dll. Alright, well, we have our 4th copy of Windows 3.1 that I'm now putting into the drive. We're going to restart the system once more. Okay, so this copy actually got past gdi.exe. If you guys saw down there at the bottom, it said copying gdi.exe, and then it actually went past it. So I don't know what the heck is the problem with all of these. I mean, this is 3 copies of Windows 3.11, Windows 3.1, or no, 2 copies of Windows 3.11 and 1 copy of Windows for Workgroups 3.11. And And this copy like just works. So I don't know what these are. All official diskettes. These are official Microsoft diskettes. But we're not done yet. Let me not jinx myself. Let's see if we can actually, because you know the problem with Windows 3.0 was it wasn't getting to the screen, like the more graphical setup after disk 2. So this is that point. Got disk number 2. Okay, so there is hope. It actually loaded the graphical setup. This is what I was talking about before. So all of these, I mean, Windows 3.0 didn't get to this point, and all of these other versions didn't even get to like me inserting disk number 2. So, okay, we're just gonna roll with it. So I'm gonna type in my name here. I'm gonna type in my company as, let's just go with Team MJD. I haven't used that in a while. Press continue. Now we're going to set up Windows components. We're not going to set up printers, and we're going to set up applications already on hard disks. We're going to go with all these components here, and now it is going to start copying files again. So we're going to insert disk number 3, which we do have. So we're going to put that into the drive right now and press OK. Now I'm hoping that the incomplete Windows 3.0 installation that we have on the hard drive is not going to like cause the installer to think we don't have an existing copy of Windows. Either way, it shouldn't overwrite any of the existing files. So we're going to see if we can boot into Windows 3.1, if we can load like some of the older files like the MS-DOS Executive and some of the Windows 1 and 2 applications. Okay, so we're going to allow Windows to make the modifications to the config.sys and autoexec.bat files for us. We're going to press OK. It's made those modifications. And now it's going to search our hard disk for applications and then set them up to run with Windows. We're going to go with we're just going to choose both these here. So it's found the MS-DOS editor, so we're going to press OK. And here we go. So these are all of the applications that Windows 1 and 2 installed. We're going to add all of them over here to actually be able to use them with Windows. You see we've got the MS-DOS editor, CVT Paint, QBasic. Now some of the things don't show up here. For example, Reversi does not show up here, but we were able to, in the original video, launch Reversi in Windows 3.1 and even Windows 95. So we're going to press OK here. We're going to skip the tutorial, and we're going to return to MS-DOS, and we're going to remove the diskette here. And there we go. So that is however many floppy diskettes this is. I mean, we didn't actually go through all of these, but we went through 4 different versions of Windows 3.1, various different versions of Windows 3.1. And, well, we actually got it working, so that is pretty awesome. So from here on out, we can actually utilize CDs for everything. Hopefully. We're going to see. I do have that 29 diskette version of Windows 95 that I could use if I have to, but I don't see any reason why the CD won't work. So we're going to launch Windows here. So here we are loaded into Windows 3.1. We're going to go into Help and go to About Program Manager. We can view the About information. Obviously, it's going to have our name and our company. And what I want to do is actually go into the Games folder here. You can see that Reversi does not show up, but Solitaire and Minesweeper do. We can obviously play those games. I do want to go into File Manager, though, and see if we can launch Reversi, if it's still in here. Is it? There it is, Reversi. Okay, so it says the application you're about to run was designed for a previous version of Windows. It's just kind of saying get an updated version of the application. We're just going to say okay. And there we go. Reversi still opens up, which is pretty awesome. So can you guys believe it? It is Reversi in all of its glory. So we're going to close out of that, or actually we can go to the About info. So this is the version from Windows 2.03. Because keep in mind, 2.03 did successfully install, so it would have already overridden all of the older versions of these files from Windows 1. So the older version of Reversi from Windows 1.0 is not here anymore. It's been obviously replaced by this version. So we can close out of that. So that is good. We can actually launch applications from Windows 2.03. Now the MS-DOS Executive, which is this ms-dos.exe file right here, does not actually open up. It like will try to open up, but it will not actually do anything. You can see here. So that's kind of unfortunate. Because the MS-DOS Executive is obviously the UI for Windows 1 and Windows 2.0. Now, I was able to open this in Windows 7 in the previous video, and we're going to hope that we can do that again. One of the other programs we can try is Paint.exe. This is the older version of Microsoft Paint, and you can see that it does open up. So here it is. We can go to About Paint. This is, again, from version 2.03, and it does still work. So I can write out MJD here if I want to. There we go. Now what we can actually do is save this. Let's save this file as, and we'll save it MJD and press OK. Now something very interesting, the file extension that the old version of Paint uses to actually save files, which is the MSP file format, actually gets repurposed in later versions of Windows, and it actually is a Windows installer related file. So in later versions of Windows, when we open up that file, Windows will actually think it is a Windows installer related file as opposed to a drawing from Microsoft Paint. One thing that I also want to do while we're here is go into accessories. I do want to make a couple of files. Let's go into right here. Let's just say, you know, this was written in Windows 3.1. We can save this here, and we will save this just at the root of the C drive. How about that? And we'll save it as win31.wri. So we'll save that, and we'll do the same thing with Paintbrush, just kind of like we did in Paint. We'll go ahead and make a little graphic here. We'll write out MJD. We'll go ahead and make some shapes here. Why not? Let's make a red shape. We'll go into like the circles here. So there we go. We'll go ahead and save that. We will save this to the root of the C drive as well as win31.bmp. Now one thing that I do want to do, which is something that I also did in the original video, is I want to actually make some modifications to control panel in here, mainly with the window color. And the idea here is basically setting a custom color scheme. So let's make like the active title bars yellow. Let's make the title bar text black. The inactive title bar text will be red. Let's make the background orange. We can make highlighted items green. Disabled text can be black, or actually no, that doesn't really fit very well. Let's do like a gray there. Window text. I mean, we're just kind of really customizing this in here, and then what we do is see if by upgrading to later versions of Windows, if it will actually retain all of these user set preferences. Now, spoiler alert, this does actually work, and you can see that in the original video, but we're still going to do it here because it is kind of cool. So we'll go ahead and change the button color and the application workspace color. Let's do this like dark blue color. So we'll hit OK. So there we go. We've got a totally custom color scheme here. So we're going to go ahead and close out of Windows. And we'll go ahead and end our Windows session. And now what we're going to do is reboot the system with the Windows 95 boot disk in the drive. So we're going to put that in and press Control-Alt-Delete to restart. Alright, so we've got the Windows 95 CD inserted. We're going to go ahead and switch to drive R here. And we're going to press Enter. It's going to run ScanDisk, which is obviously what it normally does. So we're going to, it found 131,000 bytes of data that might be one or more lost files or directories, which was probably just taking up space. That's interesting. We're just going to leave it alone. We're just going to say don't fix it and just leave it be. And this is an upgrade copy of Windows 95, by the way, which we obviously need to have in this case because we don't want to overwrite the existing Windows installation. We just want to upgrade. So we're going to accept the agreement, and we're going to go with a custom installation because we do want to customize everything. You can see it's already auto-populated our name and company that we entered in the Windows 3.1 setup, so we're going to leave that. And we're going to get our CD key here and enter that in. Alright, well, we're actually getting the exact same thing happening that happened in my Windows 95 floppy installation video, and it's the reason why I wasn't able to successfully install Windows 95, and that's because at the point where it's analyzing your computer, it actually freezes up. You can see I'm moving the mouse right now. The mouse cursor is not moving. The system has locked up. And yeah, this is literally the exact same thing that happened. And it tells us to not press Control-Delete. It says turn your computer off if there's no disk activity for a long time. And then it says turn it back on, run setup, and choose safe recovery. And this is the screen where it will actually freeze on. If you say yes, do you want setup to look for all hardware devices? We're going to say no, I want to modify the hardware list. So what I've basically done here is I've unchecked all of the unnecessary things that we do not absolutely need. And it's going to search for these devices right here. So we're just going to roll with that and press next, and it's still going to have to analyze everything. And I'm going to just move the mouse around here, and if it locks up, that's not a good sign. And there we go. So we actually got past it. So one of those devices that I unchecked that it was searching for was actually causing the setup to completely lock up. So it's a good thing we were able to get past that. So we are going to install all of these extra components. We're going to just have all of those checked. We're going to click on next. And this is where we actually get to modify the components. So we're just going to get everything. So we're going to check all of these categories. All right, so that is everything. We've got all of the components selected here. Now, there's going to be a point where, because this disk right now is only, or this like hard drive is only utilizing 2 gigs, as you can see, it's about 2,000 megabytes there. There is going to be a point where we have to expand the partition, but for now it's only going to require 90 megabytes, you know, and that's with installing everything. So we're just going to roll with that and click next. And for network devices, it says the following network components will be installed. Sure. And for the computer name, it wants to name the computer name Michael. We're going to actually change that to the 98 PC. The work group will keep as Team MJD. In the computer description, we'll just put the same thing, or actually we'll just put the $5 Windows 98 PC. Click next. And for our hardware, we're going to leave, I mean, all this is pretty much going to be fine. We've got our standard display adapter VGA, which is obviously what we want. Yeah, everything still looks good. Oh, we could change the user interface if you wanted to go back to the 3.1 program manager. We're going to leave it at Windows 95 though. Click on next, and we're going to, yeah, start copying Windows 95 files to your computer. So there we go, guys. 95 is actually copying files right now. So we were able to get Windows 1 installed, we were able to get Windows 3.1 installed, and hopefully Windows 95 will finish up here. Alright, so the setup has finished up here. It's going to tell us to remove all the disks from our drive. So we're going to go ahead and remove the floppy disk and the CD-ROM. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll actually restart the system and boot up into Windows 95. So let's go ahead and press finish. And you can see already that some of the user set preferences that we specified in Windows 3.1 are taking effect here. So you can see that the yellow title bar color and the black text color is still here, and that's again what we said in Windows 3.1. We're going to go ahead and name our username Michael, and we're not going to bother entering a password. So now it's going to detect all hardware devices. It's not going to find the Windows 95 CD-ROM. Oh, that's right, because I took it out. And oh, it doesn't actually load the, dang it, it doesn't actually load the driver. So it looks like it does not actually load the driver. So what we're going to have to do is actually boot off of the floppy diskette and copy the drivers, or all those files from the Win95 folder over to the hard drive. 34 files copied, so we're going to go ahead and eject the CD right here and pop out the floppy disk, press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to restart. And now when we load back into Windows, we should be able to specify where those files are located. And so right here, we're going to press OK, and we're going to change this R here to a C. And now it should be able to find all those drivers. And yep, we're moving on. Just like normal. It's going to configure Microsoft Exchange, which is one of the options that we specified during the setup. And there we go. Setup has finished configuring your system. It asks us to restart our system. Now you'll notice that the background is orange. That was again another setting that we specified in Windows 3.1, so that has carried over as well. There we go, guys. We have just logged into Windows 95, and you can see that that yellow color is taking effect on the icons as well. Now you'll notice that Windows 95 has not actually kept the exact same program groups like it did in my original video, but under this applications folder, these are all the programs that are pre-Windows 3.1. So like CVT Paint, which is Convert Paint, I believe is even from Windows 1.0. It actually does not open. It just says Windows cannot run this program. There are no compatibility settings or anything like that in Windows 95. But what we can do though is go into my computer, and you can see that our C drive has the label MS-DOS 6, which was what I specified in like when I installed MS-DOS. So that has not been changed. That is still carried over. Obviously the like theme, as I said, but we can go into Windows here. And in here is obviously going to be where all of our applications are stored. So we can still scroll through here. We can find Progman, which was the Windows 3.1 Program Manager. Now, Windows 95 does include this, and they just update it. So this is not the exact same file that was in Windows 3.1, but you can still load the Program Manager, and you can set this as your default interface if you wanted to, which was that setting that you could specify during the setup. But if we scroll over here some more, you see we've got Reversi right here. We can try to launch this, and it actually does not launch the program, which is kind of unfortunate. Now there are no compatibility settings in here, so we cannot enable anything like that. I'm pretty sure that Reversi ran in my VM version of this experiment, so that's kind of unfortunate. It just literally says Windows cannot run this program. So we'll see if miraculously, like in Windows 98, if it suddenly works again, or possibly even a future version of Windows after that. For other programs, let's scroll through here. There's Paint right here. Paint actually does not work. For MS-DOS here, which is the MS-DOS Executive, this executable does not open up either. It just says it's not a valid Win32 application, which it isn't. Yeah, it actually appears that the majority of these programs do not open anymore. I'm trying to find some other ones here. CardFile, this is the Windows 95 version of CardFile. Same with Calendar. Or this could be like because this looks just like the Windows 1.0 and 2.0 version of Calendar. It could just be that going into Help and About just brings up the Windows 95 About screen, like where it says Microsoft Calendar Windows 95. But I believe this is the same program from Windows like 1.0 and 2.0. So we can even say, like, let's just make a little calendar here. Let's say at 7 a.m. I want to make a video. At 10 a.m. I want to edit a video. We'll go ahead and just save that, and we'll just save this to the C drive as test.cal and save that. But yeah, clock here, this is the clock program from Windows. One of the things that I did that I actually forgot to do in this run of the experiment is, in the previous version, I opened the clock in Windows 3.1 and had it down here at the bottom corner, and when I upgrade to Windows 95 and open up the clock, it opened up in the exact same spot. So we're going to see if that happens here with Windows 95. See if we upgrade to 98 and if opening the clock will actually, open it up in the exact same spot. But yeah, I'm thinking that this calendar program and the CardFile program are the older versions of this program, because these do look exactly like the versions that were in 1.0 and 2.0, and I would think Microsoft would have updated them for 95, because they even upgraded the program manager. I mean, the program manager in 95 is not the same as in Windows 3.1. One thing we can also do is go to the root of the C drive and actually try to open up these files that we created. So let's go ahead, and the C drive is right here. So we have Win31. This is the Paint file, so you can see that obviously still opens up. So here it is. And then this right here is the which is now WordPad document, and it says this was written in Windows 3.1, and we can add to that and opened in Windows 95, and we can save that. It's going to ask you have to save it in a different format because the WRI format, I guess, is not used anymore, so we have to save it. Let's just save it as a .txt file, so we'll save that. So now we've got win31.wri and win31. This is the one that's actually been modified. So I think that we're ready, guys. Let's go ahead and pop in the Windows 98 CD-ROM. I'll go ahead and show that to you guys again. There it is. So we'll go ahead and pop that in. And when we insert, it's going to ask you if you want to upgrade to Windows 98. We're going to say yes, and we're going to jump right into the setup. And you can see even here in the Windows 98 setup, those custom colors that we applied in Windows 3.1 are still taking effect. Even with the progress bar, it was green there, as you guys saw. So we're going to accept the license agreement. And our product key is actually on the back of this CD case. And so right here, it's going to ask us if you want to save your existing MS-DOS and Windows system files. We're going to say yes, because we absolutely want to save these files. And so we're just going to go through these prompts here. We're obviously here in the US. We're going to not create a startup disk. It's going to ask us if we want to do this. We're just going to say cancel because we don't need a startup disk, and we're going to begin copying files. Alright, so the setup has almost completed. We're here at the very last phase where it is updating system settings. And there we go, guys. We're restarting. We've got the Windows 98 boot screen, which is pretty awesome. And once again, we have our same preferences that we set back in Windows 3.1. We've got the yellow title bar, the black title bar text, and the orange background. Alright, so here we are, guys. We've got the Windows 98 little welcome window here. We're going to close out of that. We have our channel guide, over here. So that is, a program that Windows 98 introduced. Now, we did actually get some more icons on the desktop. Now, going into the Start menu and into Programs, we can go into the Applications folder again, which once again contains all of our pre-Windows 3.1 programs. We're going to try to launch ConvertPaint. And it says Windows cannot run this program. That is kind of unfortunate. Now, we can launch like a Microsoft QBasic. I mean, this is a MS-DOS program. I mean, we can actually load this up, and you can see that the copyright date is 87 to 92, meaning that Windows 98 did not touch this. So that is QBasic. We can obviously launch that. One of the other programs that we have is MSAV, which is Microsoft Antivirus. And this right here is a Windows, I mean, this is not a Windows 98 program. We can go ahead and go to About Antivirus. You see it's Microsoft Antivirus for Windows, copyright 1993. So this is most likely a Windows 3.1 application. But yeah, this is basically, just a virus scanner, for Windows. So that is a program that does open up. And you can see that the title bar and everything is a little bit different, in a little bit of a different design. It kind of looks more similar to Windows 3.1. Just the way that it looks. I mean, I can open up a my computer window, and you can see they just kind of look a little bit different, like the actual border around them. So yeah, that is definitely a Windows 3.1 program. We can also, let's see what else we got in here. We once again have card file and calendar. We can open this up. Card file looks exactly the same. And going into help and about, it's probably, yeah, so now it says Windows 98. So this is just probably pulling the like generic about screen from Windows 98, because this is literally the exact same program. The same thing with calendar. These programs are not normally in the accessories folder. So this calendar program right here, yep, you can see that it is exactly the same as it was before, just with a different about box. So we do have a couple of programs from older versions of Windows that do still open up. What I also want to do is go into the C drive here and go into Windows, and I want to actually check out some of those other programs in here. And this MJD file right here is the MSP file that we created using the older version of Paintbrush. You can see it even says it's a Paintbrush picture. But when we open it, it says that Windows cannot run this program. Most likely it's trying to open up the old Paint program, because it is still like recognizing it as a Paintbrush file, or as a like older, Paint program file. MS-DOS here, this is the MS-DOS executive. This still does not launch. It says it's not a valid Win32 application. We still don't have any compatibility mode options in here. We do still have the Program Manager in here. We can open this up and go to About Program Manager, and you can see now it just says Windows 98 here, but it's got the same logo from Windows 3.1. So we can, now we don't have any of our program groups though. You can see that all our program groups actually got wiped, but we can make a new program group if we want to. Let's just call this main. And so there we go. So we now have a new program group. So we can just kind of leave that there and just see if when we reopen that in a newer version of Windows, if it retains the same program group. What I also want to do is open up the clock program, because if you guys remember, I moved it to the bottom left corner of the screen in Windows 95 before I updated 98. So it actually does not retain exactly where it was, which is what happened in the previous video from Windows 3.1 to 95, which is kind of unfortunate, but it still launches. And I'm pretty sure this clock program is not a Windows 98 program. It will still say it's a Windows 98 clock, but this is like the same about screen that shows up for card file and calendar, and those are definitely not Windows 98 programs. So it has retained a couple of files. Reversi, I'm sure, is not going to work, which is going to kind of suck. Yep, it's not going to launch, so that is really annoying, but definitely, pretty awesome. Now, I think what I'm going to do, I know I said earlier that we're going to jump to 98 SE, but honestly, Windows 98 and 98 SE are based on the same release of Windows. That, yes, updating to it, we could do it, but honestly, I think I'm just going to upgrade to Windows ME, because I've got the Windows ME disk right here. So honestly, we're just going to try to jump straight from 98 First Edition to Windows ME. So we'll see if how that works for us. If you guys want to see the 98 SE from 98 First Edition upgrade process, you can check out my original video on this whole experiment, because I did do it in that video. But the setup process is literally exactly the same. I mean, there's not really a whole lot that's been changed, especially design-wise. It's pretty much an identical setup process. So we're going to go into my computer here, and we should now have the Windows ME disk. Before we actually jump into that, though, let's actually check the status of our hard drive. So we are currently using 344 megabytes of the 1.99 gigs that the hard drive is partitioned as, and we can obviously expand this, and we're going to have to for later releases. So we're just going to go ahead and press next here. We're going to agree to the license agreement and type in our product key, and we're going to once again install to the C Windows directory. So right here is where it's going to ask you if you want to save your existing system files. We're going to say Yes, because we definitely want to do that. So just like the Windows 98 setup, the Windows ME setup is going to ask us to create a startup disk. We're going to click cancel because we don't need to do that. And here we go. We're going to click on finish to allow the setup program to begin copying files. All right, so we've restarted into the second phase of the setup, and this is kind of the last phase where it's going to be setting up hardware and all of that good stuff. You see we've got about 19 minutes remaining on the clock there. Alright, so here we are booted into Windows ME, and you can see that once again we have that orange background. One thing we don't have though is the yellow kind of highlighted text that would appear on all of the icons. However, we do have the green color when we select items. So opening up the start menu here, if we go into programs, and you can see once again that green highlighted color is still showing up in here as well. Under applications, we have the ConvertPaint utility, which is probably not going to launch, and yeah, you can see that's still not going to launch. Let's go ahead and launch the antivirus program because this did open, and you can see it still opens up here in Windows ME. If we go to Help and About, you can see this still has the same About window, copyright 1993. We'll click on OK. Now you'll notice that the title bar here has a bit of a gradient effect going on. I don't believe this was the case in the previous installations of Windows 95 and 98. It was just a solid yellow color. Now we'll open up an Explorer window and see if that takes effect as well. And you can see that it does once again with the same gradient effect. So Windows ME has kind of added a bit of a gradient to the title bar, but the text is still black. Now normally it's white because this color, this background color for the title bar is blue. Or a bluish color. MS-DOS 6 is still the drive label, but it is all capitalized this time. And scrolling down here, we do still have calendar and card file. I do believe that we will still see these in all programs. We can go into programs and accessories, and you can see that, yeah, we've got card file and calendar right here. Calendar opens up, we can go to Help and About, and you see now it says Windows ME. So yeah, this is still the same calendar program, same with the card file. It's just updating the About window depending on what release of Windows that we're loaded into. We have the clock program as well. This was introduced in Windows 3.1. Now the MS-DOS executive still does not open up. It says it's not a valid Win32 application, and we still do not have compatibility settings for this executable. So, and yeah, that's going to be introduced in Windows XP. We should get those compatibility settings. We also have the program manager. We can open this up. This is going to, once again say Windows ME in the About box. Now you'll notice that it did not actually save my program group that I created in Windows 98 or Windows 95. And it's not even giving us an option to open an existing program group. So that's actually kind of interesting, but the program manager program itself still does launch. We also have a Tor 98. This is the Windows 98 Tor program. It's going to say it cannot find we actually need to insert the Windows 98 CD. So even with the CD in the drive, it still does not want to open up. It says that it cannot find discover.exe. It says insert your Windows 98 CD or verify that your network connection is still active. So it's not actually going to actually launch the Tor. But we can scroll down here and kind of take a look at some of the other programs. We obviously have Write here. We also have Reversi here, which is still probably not going to open up. So we still can't open up Reversi, which is kind of weird because, like I said in the original video of this, I was able to launch Reversi. I think up until Windows, I think even in Windows XP, I was still able to launch Reversi. So that's kind of frustrating. But we're going to go ahead and move on to Windows XP. I'm inserting that disk into the drive right now. So let's go ahead and close out of Explorer here. One thing that we can do is let's actually just create a new WordPad document on the desktop and just call this Windows ME, just to kind of have it on the desktop and see if Windows XP will actually, keep our existing desktop icons, which it should. But let's see if it actually keeps the layout. I'm going to move it like over here. Off to the right side. So here's our Windows XP setup menu. We're going to click on Install Windows XP, and this is once again an upgrade copy of XP. So it's going to, ask us if we want to save all of our files, which is right here. So it says what installation type do you want to do. We've got between upgrade and new installation. We're just going to choose upgrade because that's obviously what we want. We're going to accept the agreement. Alright, so it's going to go ahead and create a upgrade report for us. We'll go ahead and just say, yeah, sure. So we'll click on next to allow it to do that. And this will basically give us kind of an idea of what applications will work with XP, what applications won't. We're not going to bother downloading the setup files because we can't, because we're not connected to the internet at the moment, so we're just going to say no. Alright, so here we go. It is analyzing our computer right now. You can see it says setup will complete in approximately 62 minutes, so about an hour. Hopefully it won't take that long, but it definitely could, because the other Windows editions that I've installed for this video, 98 and ME, have been pretty accurate with that, because this is obviously on real hardware, and this computer is a bit old. So we're just going to let it continue here, and I will come back when something interesting happens. Alright guys, well, here we are. We have Windows XP fully installed, and we actually have two user accounts. We have Michael and Owner, which is actually kind of interesting because I didn't create an extra account in any of the other versions, so this just kind of created this extra owner account for us. So we're going to log into my account. Alright, well, here we are logged into Windows XP, and you can see that the Luna theme has been applied, so our custom color scheme does not take effect anymore. However, we do still have the Windows ME file that we created on the desktop. This is once again just that little text document that I created. Going into the accessories folder, you see we still have the calendar and the card file programs, and they do still open up. This with the older like Windows Classic theme, but you can see that our custom color scheme is no longer applied, which is unfortunate. Let's see if we can go into properties here and actually go into settings or under appearance and change this to the Windows Classic style. And you can see that changing the color scheme to Windows Standard is not going to bring back our older color scheme. You can see that the channel guide though actually opens up. So yeah, we can open up card file, we can open up calendar. Let's see if we can go into, let's see, what else do we got in here? Accessibility, communications. Well, this is all going to be our standard stuff. Under applications, we still have CVT Paint, which now is going to say application compatibility warning as opposed to we just can't open it. So let's say OK, and check that out, it actually opens up. So this is the paint conversion utility, I believe from Windows 1.0. So that's actually really awesome. So we should be able to go into our hard drive here, go into Windows. Let's see if we can load Reversi. There it is, Reversi. So let's double click on this. It's going to say the application you're about to run was designed for a previous version of Windows. We'll say OK. And let's see if that opens up. Well, it looks like that is not loading up. The paint conversion utility did. Alright, so I went ahead and actually loaded into safe mode here, and you can see that our custom color scheme is actually applied here. So you see we've got the same kind of gradient effect going on up in the title bar. We've got the black title bar text, the yellow background here, which kind of fades to this blue color. We've got orange kind of highlighted around the desktop icons, and then we have, once again, when we actually highlight them or select them, they turn green. So that's actually pretty cool. So it does apply in safe mode here, but just not in the like regular mode, obviously. So let's scroll down here and see what else we have. We have the MS-DOS Executive, so we can launch that. And it actually comes up with a command prompt window here, and it says that the NTVDM, which is the NT Virtual DOS Machine CPU, has encountered an illegal instruction. Choose close to terminate. Let's see what happens if we say ignore. It'll just close anyway. So that's unfortunate. Now, I was able to open up that MSD executable was Microsoft Diagnostics, which this is version 2.0. Copyright 1990 to 92. You can see this is, yeah, a pretty old program. We'll go ahead and close out of that. So that still opens up, but it appears to be a DOS program, as you can see. The paintbrush, which is the pbrush executable, looks to have been removed, actually. Alright, welcome back, everybody. So I've actually had to do a couple of things, well, mainly one thing since the last clip, and that is I had to update Windows XP to Service Pack 2 because Windows Vista requires you to have Service Pack 2 installed to actually update. So yeah, here we are. We're actually booted out of safe mode into regular Windows XP, and I do want to highlight a couple of things that Windows XP still has here, even though that we've upgraded from the Windows 9X series of operating systems. And one of those is over on the right side. You see we still have the channel guide. This was a feature that Windows 98 introduced, and we still have it here. I can still click on the Microsoft Network to open up a now non-existent web page. So that's actually pretty cool that this thing is still working. So yes, the Microsoft channel guide is still here. I can even make it like take up half of the entire desktop if I want to. So let's just kind of leave it like this and see if with Vista, I mean, Vista got rid of Active Desktop, and that's what this is using to actually run. So we might still have this shortcut here on the desktop, but Vista is obviously not going to be able to use this because it relies on Active Desktop. We also do still have this text document that we created using Windows ME. One of the other things that I find amazing is if we go into the Start menu here and go to Email, you'll see that Windows XP has not made Outlook Express 6 the default email client. It has kept the default email client from Windows 95. This is Microsoft Exchange for Windows 95. It doesn't actually open up. It tries to, but you can very, very quickly see that it says Microsoft Exchange for Windows 95 version 4.1, which is pretty awesome. So it hasn't actually modified the default mail client. It's still actually using the old version from Windows 95. We can go into my computer here, and one of the other things that I had to do between these two clips is I had to convert the file system over to NTFS. This was something that in the previous run of this experiment, when I installed Windows 2000, it automatically did it for us. Windows XP actually did not, so I had to manually convert this file system from FAT16, which is what it was at, over to NTFS. One of the other things that I did is I expanded the partition because Windows Vista is not going to be able to install on a 2 gig partition, which is what this drive was. XP was taking up like over 90% of the space on the hard drive. There was only like 300 megabytes, I think, of free space. So now we've got 71.7 gigs of free space, so Vista should not have any problem installing. So with all that said, let's go ahead and actually put in our copy of Windows Vista. Now, I actually have a express upgrade to Windows Vista. This right here is one of those copies that was sent out to people who got one of those Windows Vista capable computers, which had a sticker that looked like this, and it was installed with XP, but you could opt to get an upgrade for Windows Vista, which is what this is right here. And the interesting thing about this is specifically made for Gateway and eMachines PCs. And what is this computer, you might ask? Well, it's a Gateway computer. Now, obviously, this thing is not Windows Vista capable. I just thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and put in our Home Premium Express Upgrade CD. We're going to pop that into the DVD drive right here. Now, one of the things that we also have is a Drivers and Applications Update CD for Windows Vista. I've never actually used this, but it is here for us if we needed to update some drivers for Vista. Now, one of the things that it does say on the very back here is it says that not all Windows Vista features will be available for use on all Windows Vista capable PCs, and it specifically mentions the new Windows Aero user interface. So it does say kind of like, hey, don't expect to use Windows Aero on a computer that does not meet the minimum hardware requirements. Okay, so unfortunately, because I had to upgrade to XP Professional, this is not going to work. This is something that I totally overlooked. This is a Home Premium copy of Windows Vista, and you can see right there at the bottom it's going to say upgrade has been disabled. You cannot upgrade from XP Pro to Windows Vista Home Premium. You have to get Windows Vista Business. Okay, so luckily I was able to find another copy of Vista that I had that actually has Windows Vista Business on the CD as opposed to Home Premium. So we're going to go ahead and accept these license terms and click Next. And now you can see that we have an upgrade option. And this is going to be great because the version of Windows 7 that I have is Windows 7 Pro. 32-bit obviously, so we're going to need to have Vista Business. Now, I know that there are some ways to modify certain files on the CDs to kind of bypass this and install whatever version you want anyway, but we're just going to roll with this. I mean, since I have the actual copy of Windows Vista Business, we're just going to roll with it. So we're going to click on Upgrade, and it's going to say that there are potential issues. This is actually exactly what it did in the original video. I wonder if it's going to say, oh no, it just went through with it. So actually, I think what I had to do with in the VM version of this video is I had to install VMware Tools. Like, the Vista installation would not continue because it was like, oh, you have an incompatible display driver, or something like that, and it literally would not continue. So it's good that it's not going to do that here. It's actually start copying Windows files, and you can see down here at the bottom we have a message that isn't usually here, at least with a clean install, because it says your upgrade may take several hours to complete. So yeah, that's exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and let this upgrade here, and when we come back, hopefully Vista will install with no problems, no issues at all, and we'll be able to check out running Vista, and then we will move on to Windows 7. Alright, so the Vista setup is almost done here. We're going to go ahead and just say ask me later for the updates, because once again we're not connected to the internet, so we're not going to get them. And we're going to click on Start. So we're logged in here, and you'll notice that right off the bat, one of the major changes is the fact that there's only 4 icons On the desktop, we've got Recycle Bin. My Briefcase is still here. This, I believe, was put on the desktop when Windows 95 or 98 was installed. We have that windowsme.doc file, which actually does not have an application that is tied to it now. And we also have Microsoft Channel Guide. Now, this was actually like the shortcut to open up the Microsoft Channel Guide. Now it's just a folder. You can see it's just an empty folder with nothing in it. Now, we still have down here the View Channels button in the Quick Launch bar, and we can click that, but it's obviously not going to do anything. So we can go into the Start menu, and you'll notice that we once again have our email client is still the old version of Microsoft Exchange, which still does not actually open up, but we can see the splash screen there. So that has not been changed by Windows Vista. If we go into all programs here, we still have the applications folder, and this once again contains all those older applications. And we've got ConvertPaint. Let's try to launch ConvertPaint again. And we get that same application compatibility warning. We'll click on OK. And check that out, it actually still opens up. Man, can you believe that? So here on Windows Vista, the Paint Conversion utility still launches. Now, you'll notice that our custom theme and everything that we applied back in Windows 3 is no longer here. It has been completely wiped, very similar to Windows XP. You know, when we had the Luna theme applied, we can boot into safe mode and see if it gets applied there, but I highly doubt that's the case. We can also launch MWAV, which is the Microsoft Windows antivirus, and this, wow, that actually still launches as well. So this is the old antivirus program, once again, from 1993, so this still opens up. Under accessories, we do still have the calendar and card file shortcuts. You'll notice that the icons have changed to the generic executable icon, and that's the same with everything under the applications folder except for QBasic. QBasic does still open up. This is again a DOS program, so it actually will still open up. And this is a 16-bit program, obviously, but since we're running Vista 32-bit, we can natively run it. If we didn't, you know, if we were running the 64-bit variant of Vista, we would have to install OTVDM to actually be able to run this 16-bit program. But yes, calendar and card file, let's see if they open up here. So we can open up card file, and that still opens up. And going to help and about, this time you'll actually notice that it displays an error message, and it says there's not enough memory to perform this operation. This actually did happen in Vista in the original video as well. It's going to be the same story with calendar. We can open that up, and you can see calendar will open up. We can try to view the about box, and this one actually will just not even do anything. But what we can do is if we want to go to open here, we can open up that test.cal file that we created and check out this old file browser. Yeah, this is still here. Click on OK, and you can see that our 2 appointments are still here. So yes, that data did get saved. The big thing I want to do, obviously, is open up computer. And first of all, let's see how much space is being taken up on our MS-DOS 6 C drive right here. You see we've got 67.1 gigabytes free of our 75 gig drive. And in the properties here, you can see we're using 7.33 gigabytes. So yeah, definitely had to expand that partition or we would not be able to install Vista. So let's go into our C drive and browse these files in here. So we're going to run the clock executable, or at least attempt to run it. And wow, the clock actually still works. So far we've got the clock program, we have the paint conversion utility, and we have the calendar and card file programs. Now you'll notice that since these are all 16-bit programs, they're launching under NTVDM down here, and that is the actual executable that these programs run under. They don't run like clock.exe does not show up in Task Manager. It's going to show up under NTVDM.exe because that's the program being used to actually run these programs. I do want to check out the MS-DOS Executive because this we've not had any luck with, and it looks like we're not going to have any luck with it in here either. But what we can now do is actually set a compatibility layer, and we could have done this in XP, but I just forgot to do it. So let's set the compatibility mode to Windows 95 and run it as an administrator, and let's see if we can run it that way. And it opens up in a window and it gives us that same illegal instruction error, so that is unfortunate. But you can see that putting it into compatibility mode did actually allow it to launch, but it's just going to come up with this error, which is very unfortunate because, like I said, this did work in Windows 7 in the original take of this video. And yes, clicking on ignore does the exact same thing. It'll just come up with it again, and when you click ignore once more, it'll just close. We do also have the old paint executable. This is one we've not really had any luck with. Let's try it here. And see if we can open it up. Not enough memory to run paint. Okay, well, that's a different error message that we haven't been getting before. Let's try to put this into compatibility mode. So that does the exact same thing, unfortunately. Not enough memory to run paint. We obviously can try Reversi. I really would like Reversi to work, and that looks like it's just not going to do anything. Let's go into properties and set this into compatibility mode. And no, that unfortunately does not fix the problem either. So Reversi appears to not actually want to launch. I mean, we can try some of these other settings. I wouldn't think that any of these like running. I mean, we can just check all of these, honestly. I don't really think this is going to make it run because it's literally just not working at all. I mean, we can hit allow here and yeah, let's click OK. And no, that has not worked either. The program literally just crashed. So yeah, the MS-DOS executive is crashing upon open. Same with Reversi and the old Paint program as well. Spooler, this is actually an old Windows 1.0 and 2.0 program. And you can see with the date modified here, 11/12/1987. That's when Windows 2.0 came out in 1987. So this file has not been modified since, you know, like it's not been touched by any later Windows release. It's been left alone. We can try to run Spooler. It gives us a error saying call to undefined Dynalink, which is probably because we're running this on such a newer version of Windows. We can try to once again put this into compatibility mode, and yeah, that does the exact same thing. But what we can do is actually sort these programs by date modified, and actually let's scroll all the way up here. So you can see that once we get out of the folders here, down here at the bottom you see that these right here, 1985, 85, all these files that were last modified in 1985 come from Windows 1.0 and have not been modified since Windows 1.0 installed them on the hard drive. So you see we also have the abc.txt and the dothis.txt. These are both sample text documents that Windows creates, and you can see it's got the same, this is the contents of the file abc.txt. We can go into dothis.txt. And this is a basic to-do list. We also have a practice.wri file. We could probably open this with WordPad. So we can actually open up this practice.wri file with WordPad, and you'll notice that we have some contents of the document displaying incorrectly up here, but we've got an address right here. If we scroll over, we have Murphy and Allen Realtors. I don't know if this is like an actual company. I assume this was just created for demo purposes, to kind of, because this is practice.wri, so it's kind of bundled with Windows just to kind of, I guess, show you how the program works. But it's all document up here, and you can see that like right down here we actually have some more, you know, formatting problems. But it is pretty cool because once again this file was last modified by Windows 2.0 and it still opens up in Windows Vista here. We do also have a couple of other programs, for example CD Player right here. This was last modified in the year 2000, most likely from Windows ME, but it actually just opens up Windows Media Player 11. Yeah, that's literally just going to open up Windows Media Player, so that's kind of been I guess that CD Player executable has been like repurposed to just launch Windows Media Player. So yeah, we still have the old executable in here though. And so yeah guys, that is, if I want to open up WinVer here, that is Windows Vista running here on the 98 PC. Now you'll notice that once again it has kept our name and company down here that we specified back in 3.1. Which is still pretty awesome. So one thing that I want to do before we jump into installing Windows 7 is I want to actually boot into safe mode to see if, like in Windows XP, if our custom color scheme gets applied there. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. Alright, so we're booted into safe mode here, and you can see, I mean, this is what I thought was going to happen, that the color scheme is not applied. So that is unfortunate, and yes, even changing the color scheme to the Windows Classic theme, both in safe mode and in the standard mode, still does not actually give us our custom colors back. We can probably go into color and appearance, and I mean, you can see, yeah, Windows Standard is what we're on now. We can change it to Windows Classic, but judging from the preview, I mean, that's not really going to do anything, I would guess. Let's just let it apply here, and yeah, you can see that it just goes back to the standard color here. Now you'll notice there's no additional color scheme in here. It basically did not save any of our previous settings, which, like I said before, is kind of unfortunate, but that's just kind of what happens with Windows Vista here. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Windows 7. I've got the CD. I'm going to put it in the drive right now, or the DVD rather. And so check that out. Essentially, we have the exact same thing that happened with upgrading from XP to Vista. We need to have a service pack installed, in this case, Service Pack 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. Alright, so I just upgraded Windows Vista to Service Pack 1, and right now the Windows 7 installer is checking compatibility, and hopefully hopefully it will not give us any issues and allow us to proceed with the installation. Okay, so it went ahead and actually saved a compatibility report to the desktop, and you'll see that the next button down here is no longer grayed out, so we can actually proceed, but it's just going to say that like there are a couple of programs that will not work anymore. For example, it says Windows Mail is no longer included in Windows, and the second one down here, it says that these devices might not work properly after the upgrade, and this is the audio controller that I have, which I don't even have like a set of speakers for this, so I'm not really concerned about that. And down here at the bottom it says these programs might not work properly. MSN Explorer, which was actually bundled with Windows XP and was kept through the upgrade process to Vista. It's going to begin upgrading Windows, and it's got that same message down there at the bottom. Your upgrade may take several hours to complete. Alright guys, well, we are finally back, and this upgrade process for Windows 7 actually took over 2 hours to complete, but I'm glad to say that we're finally done. We've successfully installed Windows 7. So right off the bat, you guys can see that Windows 7 has actually kept our theme preferences from the previous installation, because when I actually ran this upgrader, we actually had the classic theme applied and not the Aero theme, so it's actually kept that for us here. Although Windows 7 obviously, by default has a much larger taskbar. We're going to go ahead and go into the Start menu, and we're going to go into Computer. And yeah, by the way, if you didn't notice, we do still have the same icons on the desktop. We also have a Windows compatibility report. This is the report that the Windows 7 installer created for us to basically let us know what applications aren't going to be compatible with Windows 7. And yeah, this is exactly the same thing that the setup program displayed for us, so we do have a HTML copy of that. But yeah, going into the computer here, let's right click on our C drive and go to properties and see what our statistics are for this. So you see that we are using up 10.5 gigabytes of hard drive space now, and we have 63.9 gigabytes free, so we have almost a quarter of the drive taken up. So we're going to go ahead and close out of that. Going into the C drive, we can once again try to launch these older Windows programs. Actually, we can just do this from the Start menu and see what still shows up in here, but I will definitely have to browse through the Windows folder for a couple of those programs. So in here we have the applications folder once again. This has not been changed at all. Let's try to launch ConvertPaint. Now keep in mind this did work in Windows Vista, so we'll see if it still works here in 7. We're going to click on OK. And check that out, it actually still does open up, so the paint conversion utility still opens up, so that is really awesome. So we'll go ahead and cancel out of that. Going back in here, we have been launching MWAV, which is again the antivirus program, and this actually still works, so there we go. Under accessories, we still have Calendar and Card File. We can try to launch these. Calendar still opens up, so that is pretty awesome. Let's try Card File. And Card File still opens up, so man, that is awesome. So these programs still work on Windows 7. So let's go back to the Windows folder here. Now we've got it sorted by date modified once again, which is actually how we left it in the previous installation, so it looks like that setting has been kept. So we can scroll down here and let's take a look at, well, we ran ConvertPaint. We can try to run Paint again, and this has the compatibility settings already applied. And just to confirm that, we'll go into Properties here. And if we go under compatibility, you'll see that it has kept all of our compatibility preferences from Windows Vista. So we can try to launch Paint once again. And we once again get that memory error. It says not enough memory to run Paint. So that is unfortunate. Reversi, we've only gotten to work in Windows 95, I believe, which is very, very annoying. We'll go ahead and click OK here, and oh yeah, this was the one where I applied the low color mode and all of that, and it actually still does not do anything, it looks like. It literally just crashed. Scrolling down here, we also have the clock program. We've been very successful with the clock program, and check that out. It actually opened up in the exact same spot that I had it in Vista. So, okay, so that actually worked. Going from Vista to 7, the clock program actually kept its exact same spot, which is again what happened in the original video from 3.1 to 95. Now we also have the MS-DOS Executive, which we have not been able to open a single time throughout this entire video. And it looks like it does. Man, that is really annoying because we were able to do this in the VM. Gosh, I was hoping we were going to be able to shut down Windows from the MS-DOS Executive like we did in that video, which is kind of amazing. If you guys haven't seen that video, basically what happened is I was able to open up the MS-DOS Executive, which is again the UI from Windows 1 and 2, on Windows 7, I was able to go to the special menu and click on End Session, and it actually logged me out of Windows 7, which was amazing because, as I described in that video, that was code written in 1985 for that program, obviously, because it was bundled with Windows 1.0, or if you want to say, I mean, yeah, because the version that we have here is from 2.0, so 1987, but still, it was able to log you out of your Windows session on Windows 7, an operating system released in 2009, and it just actually worked. It actually still did what it was supposed to do, which is crazy. So it's unfortunate we're not going to be able to do that here because the program, as you just saw, did not want to launch. But that is still pretty awesome, guys. We were able to go from Windows 1.0 to Windows 7. Now, the question of can we upgrade to Windows 8 and Windows 10? I am positive that we're not going to be able to because this computer's processor is so old, and I'm fairly certain that it's just not compatible with Windows 8 and especially Windows 10, as I said earlier in the video. However, we're going to try anyway because I've been getting a lot of requests from you guys saying just try it, so we're going to do that. Now, unfortunately, the only copy of Windows 8 that I have is the Windows 8 Enterprise 90-day trial. I have that on this CD right here. Now, that isn't necessarily an issue, however, it could be an issue because I don't know if this is a 64-bit or a 32-bit release. I don't know if you can upgrade from a professional copy of Windows 7 to an enterprise copy of Windows 8. You might be able to, and we can try it, but I think what we're going to try first is, since you could upgrade from Windows 7 straight to Windows 10, that was an upgrade path. I have a 32-bit copy of the RTM release of Windows 10, and that's what we're going to try. My guess is that the installer will load properly. Yeah, see, right here is where it's going to check your PC. My guess is that it's going to immediately fail right here, and yep, there you go. This PC can't run Windows 10 because your processor doesn't support PAE/SSE2, and it doesn't support NX. So yeah, that is what I was talking about. This processor is just literally incompatible with Windows 10 because it is such an old CPU. And it also says you need to have at least 1 GB of RAM before you can install and run Windows 10. We have half of that. We have 512 megabytes. So we are brought to a halt immediately, so we literally cannot go any further. So we're going to have to close out of the setup wizard here. Now, I do also have the Windows 8 Enterprise 90-day trial. We can try that. So we've got the compatibility report right here, and you can see that this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. We cannot upgrade Windows 7 Professional to Windows 8 Enterprise. So the installer is not going to allow us to proceed. However, it doesn't say anything about that we don't have compatible hardware. However, I went ahead and actually verified this online, and yes, Windows 8 does require a 1 GHz or faster CPU that supports PAE, NX, and SSE2, which this computer does not support, as we just witnessed with the Windows 10 installer. So, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is as far as we can go with the Windows massive upgrade on the Windows 98 PC, but it was pretty awesome. We were able to upgrade from Windows 1.0 all the way up to Windows 7 and still keep some of these older files like the clock program here. Obviously, we have all of the files like the MS-DOS Executive and Reversi from Windows 1 and 2, but we just can't actually run any of them. But it's still cool that we have them. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this much longer video. If you did, definitely be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to get subscribed down below and turn on those channel notifications if you haven't already, to get notified whenever I upload a new video, which I do multiple times per week here on this channel. And if you guys have any comments, questions, or video suggestions for me, be sure to leave them down below, as those definitely do help, and I always enjoy reading your guys' feedback to these videos. As always, guys, I just want to thank you all so much for watching and for your continued support here on the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.